actually pretty thought it was very important. Let me explain. With crops being harvested every year right before the winter season kicked in, holding feasts in late autumn was actually pretty common, especially when there were bountiful harvests that gave the Plymouth Colony residents more food than they needed, which appears to have been the case in 1621. In a book called Of Plymouth Plantation, written by William Bradford, who was governor of Plymouth during the 1620s, he describes his citizens as being plentifully provisioned that year. As well as wild fowl, they got abundance of wild turkeys, and afterwards, many wrote at length about their plenty to their friends in England. Not feigned, but true reports. Now, an important distinction to make is that while this feast was a celebration of gratitude for that year's harvest, the Puritans of Plymouth did not consider it the first Thanksgiving at the time. If they did, the event would have had a religious component to it that included fasting, prayer, and other rituals instead of just maxing out on good food. Also, unlike the mainstream narrative claims, Native Americans from the Wampanoag tribe were not invited to partake in the feast. Or if they were, their invitations got lost in the mail. That being said, they did show up at one point, and the reason why is pretty hilarious. In a 1600s work titled Mort's Relation, Journal of the Plantation at Plymouth, Edward Winslow, one of Plymouth Colony's leaders who worked for the aforementioned governor, writes, "Amongst other recreations, we, the Plymouth residents, exercised our arms," a phrase which we're pretty certain means shot our guns in the air. He also says that after hearing the commotion and assuming the Pilgrims were being attacked, the leader of the Wampanoags showed up with some 90 men who for 3 days we entertained and feasted, and they went out and killed 5 deer, which they brought the plantation and bestowed on our governor, the captain, and others. So to reiterate, the only reason the Native Americans were present at that feast is because they heard the presumably plastered Pilgrims hooting, hollering, and blasting their guns in the air and thought they needed to be saved from a rival tribe that they weren't on good terms with. Just imagine what was going through the natives' heads when they showed up and saw a bunch of crazy white folks having the time of their lives. Honestly, it's a better story than the one that we were told, but maybe not as easy for a kindergarten class to recreate. As incredible as that would be to watch. Almost as entertaining as when that guy remade Scarface with 6-year-olds.
Say hello to my little friend. Take that, you cockroaches.
Now, the third and final written record of the first Thanksgiving comes from the New England's Memorial by Nathaniel Morton, who details the first 50 or so years of the Pilgrims' lives in the New World. He makes passing mention of the 1621 harvest, saying, "Being now well recovered in respect of health, as hath gear. We do have record of actual Thanksgivings involving religious prayer and fasting by colonists living in 1637 and 1676, but there was no native presence at any of these. In fact, both of these celebrations took place after bloody victories where natives were defeated in battle, and in 1676, Plymouth went so far as to mount the head of a Wampanoag member above their town on a pike, and they left it there to rot for 20 years. And as if that wasn't evil enough, that head belonged to the son of the Wampanoag's leader, Massasoit Sachem, who had played a pivotal role in helping the colony survive during its early years by sharing much-needed supplies. Kind of insane that we inherited our holiday of gratitude from such ungrateful, undeserving swine, but it just goes to show that the controlling powers here in America have always been about saying one thing and then doing the complete opposite. So at this point, you gotta be wondering, if the first Thanksgiving in 1621 wasn't really the first Thanksgiving, where did that narrative come from? And when was the actual first Thanksgiving? Believe it or not, we have the answers to those questions, and I'll tell you all about them after I shout out our sponsor, ExpressVPN. Come on. You guys don't mind if Gunther joins me for this section, do ya? So the truth about the real first Thanksgiving is dependent on how you define Thanksgiving. If we're talking about the first feast shared between Europeans and natives, our records indicate that in 1565, nearly 60 years before the Plymouth feast, a Spanish fleet came ashore and planted a cross in the beach to christen the new settlement of St. Augustine in what would become Florida. And to celebrate the occasion, 800 Spanish settlers shared a feast with the native Timucuan people. But if we're looking for the first first officially titled Thanksgiving, that wasn't until 1777 when George Washington proclaimed a day of Thanksgiving in December as a celebration of the U.S.'s victory over British forces at Saratoga during the Revolutionary War. That was just a one-off Thanksgiving though, and while Washington would go on to call for a few more Thanksgiving celebrations to be had in November of 1789 and February of 1795, the reoccurring annual holiday wouldn't be established for quite some time. Several decades later, in September of 1863, a woman named Sarah Josepha Hale, who Messed Up Origins fans might remember as the possible author of the original Mary Had a Little Lamb poem, wrote a letter to President Abraham Lincoln requesting for Thanksgiving to be made a national holiday. Now, she wasn't the first one to have this idea or the only one behind the movement, and we even know that Lincoln encouraged Americans to get together every fall for a day of gratitude anyway. But we do believe that she was the swing vote, because within a week of her sending the letter, the president proclaimed that going forward, America would celebrate Thanksgiving on the final Thursday of November every year. Okay? In said proclamation, he explained the importance of a holiday like Thanksgiving. At the time, America was in the thick of the Civil War, and in a time of such division, he wanted to provide a day of unity and gratitude for the whole nation. So if you want to know who to thank for your 4-day holiday weekend, look no further than Honest Abe. But wait, if there are so many other candidates for the first Thanksgiving, how did the 1621 celebration end up with the coveted title? Well, we can't say with 100% certainty who's responsible for popularizing the 1621 date, but we are pretty positive about where it started. In 1841, a few decades prior to Lincoln's Thanksgiving proclamation, a reverend named Alexander Young inextricably linked three things: the 1621 feast, the tradition of autumnal harvest festivals, and the name Thanksgiving. He did this in a footnote of his horribly titled book, Chronicles of the Pilgrim Fathers.
So that, brothers, that's the point. You can go into more videos to go into history yourself. I'll give you some here. This one.
Welcome back to Doc.
There is this channel and the video title on the screen there. You wish to go into that. That's his channel. That video was 11 months ago. And here's another one I didn't get the chance to speak on, to show you.
We all know the famous story. This is where a man named Squanto came in. Who was there, and what did they eat? By the time the first...
Here's the channel and the title.
Thanksgiving took place, about 50 pilgrims were left, a small fraction of the number who had arrived on the Mayflower. On the other hand, Massasoit arrived with around 90 Wampanoag men, a much larger group than the pilgrims had anticipated. Seeing their strategic convenient allies, the dark side of the first Thanksgiving. While there was much to be thankful for, and the feast was a time of celebration, it also highlighted the cultural gap between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans. For the Pilgrims, this feast was an expression of gratitude to their God for providing a successful harvest, and to the Wampanoag for their support. For the Wampanoag, sharing food was an important part of their culture, a way of honoring relationships. For Massasoit, participating in the feast was a strategic move and a gesture of goodwill. His people had endured massive suffering from diseases introduced by earlier European explorers, and their population had dwindled. Massasoit's role in the Pilgrims' success was primarily motivated by his desire to secure his people's future in a rapidly changing world. Although the feast is often remembered as a moment of harmony, viewing it within its broader historical context provides valuable insight. The peaceful alliance between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag was short-lived, compared to the centuries of conflict and displacement that followed for native tribes as more Europeans arrived. The first Thanksgiving was a rare moment of unity that would not last, and it was soon to be overshadowed by the colonization and conflicts that followed. For those few days, though, the groups found common ground. They shared food,
So honestly, remove King James from it and all that. Look at the bigger picture. It's going into Edom. Going back, this reminds me of when Jacob met Edom. And for a moment there, you had a time of peace. Like that was a peaceful meeting. When Jacob met Esau, years after, he stole his blessing, and Jacob had to flee, and Esau was pissed off about that and said he would murder Jacob. Years later, they were more grown adults, and they met, and it was a time of peace. But then later on, you go into the history, Israel, Jacob, and Esau, Edom, is going at it in the wilderness with Moses. Another account. Didn't let us pass. That's the first account. Esau didn't let us pass. He went out with the sword. Years later, you go into Judges. Right, Esau is also in the background still. The nations have oppressed us, done us dirty due to our judgment. Esau didn't help us at all. You go later on, further on, around the time of the kings, King David fought against Edom. Esau was pissed off about that. He would come back later on in a further generation to fight with certain kings of the scriptures. Then he helped Babylon take us down. He comes back as the Greeks. He fights us. He comes back as the Romans. He destroyed us, our temple, second temple. And then that's enough for you to not want to celebrate Thanksgiving, and then that's enough to tell you right there. And I'm just correlating. We correlate this with the scriptures. So the first Thanksgiving was a fairly peaceful one. There was no killing, no bloodshed between them. But years later, more of these Edomites come. It turns into a gang war, basically. Too much blood, for the shit to be a peace, a truce. And you had accounts where they would Edomites would celebrate Thanksgiving after a big massacre of killing Gadites on their Thanksgiving, okay, and then George Washington was with that whole Thanksgiving shit. So that's enough for that shit to be polluted, fake, false, and just bullshit. Just period.
Companionship, and maybe a sense of relief knowing that they were stronger together, if only temporarily. While the first Thanksgiving isn't the purely joyful occasion we often think of, it was a symbol of hope and a rare moment of peace in an otherwise conflict-riddled history. The aftermath and legacy of the first Thanksgiving. The peace between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag did not last forever. As more European settlers arrived, tensions grew. The original alliance between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people began to break down under immense pressure from things like land disputes and competition for resources. The settlers' relationship with the indigenous people shifted as the colony expanded. The Pilgrims' descendants and later settlers saw the land as theirs to cultivate and populate, often disrespecting the Wampanoag people and other tribes. This led to a series of conflicts, culminating in King Philip's War, a devastating conflict between the Native American tribes and the New England colonists that lasted from 1675 to 1678. It was one of the bloodiest conflicts in American history, claiming thousands of lives on both sides and leaving a permanent scar on the relationship between the indigenous people and the European settlers. The Wampanoag and their allies faced displacement, death, and a complete upheaval of their way of life. This war casts a shadow on the first Thanksgiving. In light of the suffering that was to come, the feast seems far less significant. Despite the complex and sometimes dark history surrounding Thanksgiving, it is still celebrated as a national holiday in the United States. The holiday we observe now is as much a product of 19th century myth-making as it is of historical fact. In the 1800s, figures like Sarah Josepha Hale promoted Thanksgiving as a unifying event, idealizing it as a time for Americans to come together. President Abraham Lincoln later established it as an official holiday during the Civil War, re-emphasizing the theme of gratitude and national
and that's why that nigga's on the penny.
Unity. In contrast to the story painted in the years since the first Thanksgiving feast, the real story of Thanksgiving is a brief moment of unity between two vastly different societies, overshadowed by the broader, painful context of colonization. While the gratitude, resilience, and cultural significance of the feast are worth celebrating, it is not simply the joyous occasion that our modern-day holiday makes it seem. How would you like to get a deeper
So in layman's terms, basically, bro, Thanksgiving is a bunch of bullshit, okay? The true Thanksgiving is giving thanks to the Lord. Not this fake-ass, stupid-ass holiday you jakes are about to celebrate. Like, now that I just went into it myself to make this video, this shit really just gonna piss me the fuck off about how you niggas are gonna go and celebrate this bullshit-ass day, man. That's basically like if you were to celebrate, if you're a black person that's gonna celebrate Thanksgiving, that's would be like if you were to celebrate your own people being put in chains as well, because you were fucked up by these Edomites too. I wouldn't celebrate this bullshit. Okay, basically Thanksgiving is going into one little moment in the first original Thanksgiving where Esau was, though some of them could have been jakes, were giving thanks to God, and Gad happened to go ahead and end up, technically wasn't invited, but going ahead and seeing what was going on. And it's no coincidence they were shooting guns. What made Gad wanted to go and see join the Thanksgiving, the original Thanksgiving, was the guns being shot. Esau's blessing is the gun. And that was foreshadowing. You can see how that was metaphorical, foreshadowing how Gad was going to be slaughtered by the gun. But that was the first Thanksgiving, was just they were shooting guns that made Gad go and see what the fuss was about, but then ended up joining in to the feast, bringing back to them as well five deer. Later on, you would have accounts of, but that's just one brief little short moment. After that, bro, it was all hell broke loose. They was taking Gad's land. Gad ended up being kind to Esau, teaching him how to survive, but they didn't thank him for that. They killed that same chief, Indian Gadite chief. It's like saying Indian or Gadite chief that taught them that stuff that helped them to survive during the winter. They killed him to show thanks for that. That's what you want to thanks for. Go celebrate Thanksgiving. That's what you're thinking as well with your devils for. And then there's accounts of them coming back from war, Edomites coming back from war to kill after killing a lot of Gadites. Now to celebrate it was in this same day that's going to be coming up. And moving on furthermore, they still was taking Gad's shit and still wanted to celebrate this bullshit. Now you have some Edomite bitch telling sending messages to George Washington to make this an official holiday. Nothing at all in that letter mentioning giving back Gad's shit back. Just making it a holiday for these crackers, man. Okay, to give Esau proud. That's basically what you would call in modern day, present day terms, white supremacy shit. White extremist shit. Edomite extremist shit. That's what your fucking Thanksgiving is today. Nothing about Esau was wrong. Let's give back Gad's stuff. That would be a true Thanksgiving. So really, bro, the true Thanksgiving for you Gadites, if you're listening, Don't celebrate this bullshit or pay attention to it. Your true Thanksgiving is gonna come when Yahweh Shai returns. Enough said. The facts have been placed and spoken. We made the point now. The point's been made. This day is bullshit. Okay, that day is that's gonna come up soon. That a lot of Israelites are gonna bad fans. Israelites are gonna celebrate. It's bullshit. This is Zephaniah 2:1. Gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired. Before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, this is ultimately what the Lord is going to have to bring, the destruction. The true Thanksgiving is going to be Babylon destroyed, this land America destroyed. Before the fierce anger of the Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai come upon you. Before the day of the Lord's anger, this is going to be a Lord's anger because he remembers Esau's shit in this proud days BS. See, if I wasn't to get into this and you weren't to click on this video, I know for damn sure you won't be as in tune now to how this day is gonna piss us the fuck off. Now you got an idea. Before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you, seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. So this is for all you Israelites, though. Not just Gad, but to Gad, because it's going to be this day that's gonna come up for Gad in particularly as well. But all Israelites seek ye meekness, and the meekness is not celebrating, partaking in unto this day. That Thanksgiving is actually a proud, I'm going to call it false Thanksgiving that's going to be coming up November, whatever, 27 and 24. It's really a proud day. It's falsely called Thanksgiving. It's really a proud day. It's really Esau being proud because he took all Gad's shit after all those wars and robbing and taking his shit. Because yeah, don't get me wrong, the first Thanksgiving, yeah, that was actually a peaceful gathering. The first one though, that was the other ones though. It was nothing like that, bro. After that first one, divisions started happening. The same tribe that was celebrating that with those Puritans at that when they came there, that broke up, okay, because they were taking their land. They wanted more Esau was selfish, wanted more resources. Wars broke out. So then at some point it got to where Esau was just unleashed, went full devil mode, and unleashed and just showed his true horns and said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna just take y'all shit. Here's my sword, my guns." It's no coincidence in the first Thanksgiving, what made Gad go and see what all the fuss was about was them shooting guns. They were celebrating by shooting guns, just shooting them in the air. Something Esau does today. He loves his guns. Esau's blessing is the guns. Once again, the sword in Genesis 27, the great sword, and that mentions through a red horse as a metaphor in Revelation 6. Esau's red all over like a hairy garment in Genesis 25. When you first hear about Esau, you hear about him with Jacob, and then it ends with them shaking hands and meeting. Jacob actually ended up giving Edom some gifts. Edom didn't give him any gifts. And then later on in wilderness, Esau shows his true horns once again. And that you always have accounts of that history repeating itself. For a moment, Esau will shake hands, humble himself down with Jake. But then the devil comes and shows his true horns, man. And that's why your devils are going to have to go down eternally. Because you cannot, you Jakes that want to trust these devils, bro. Jakes want to trust the devils. This is it's Sirach 12 and 10. That's why it says right here, never trust thine enemy, for like his iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed. So even if you see these devils humbling down, don't fucking believe it, bro. Don't try to feel bad for them, sorry for them, no. and go crouching, yet take good heed. Still be good, clearly aware. You don't have to be all proud, but have eyes in the back of your head. Be circumspect, even more so, and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast. Me personally, I've tried to build that, make it as a second sense, whatever, a second reflex to not even trust any devil. That's for the first time coming into this truth. I've tried to make it my technique to never trust any devil. Gotten pretty good at it. That's what this truth has led me, build me up to be. Take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. Set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, ultimately Gad allowed this devil to be set by him. Ultimately, to a certain degree, unwillingly, because it was the will of the Lord ultimately for this to happen, for our idol worship, rebelliousness, and going off in our ignorance. Sometimes intentionally going off. He said, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place, and that's what ultimately happened with Gad. Esau stood in Gad's place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat, and thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. And that's what you see with Gad today, which ultimately was our judgment, because we disobeyed the Lord in past lives and this life, and it was just ultimately the will of the Lord, how the Lord wanted this life and our lives to go, until the time when this ends. So continuing on in Zephaniah 2, verse 3. Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. I think I read that one once again. The meek of the earth, that's us, the Israelites. And we already discussed how this day is just completely off. We already discussed that. So I'm going to get Ezekiel here. Yeah, it always does that. So just never mind that. This is Ezekiel 25, verse. This is a good one right here. Going into Edom, Ezekiel 25 and verse 11. And I will execute judgments upon Moab. No, 12. It does say, Lord, because that Edom hath dwelt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and have greatly offended and revenged himself upon them. Yeah, because Jacob was actually Judah. He was from the tribe of Judah. By Jacob blessing his beloved son Gad, he's saying, this is my son. If you touch my son, you're touching me. I'm going to fuck you up. And so when Edom touches any of the tribes, Judah's on the scene. Judah used, especially back in the time of King David, Judah was on the scene. He was going to check that shit. Like, what the fuck is he doing? He's fucking with, if Gad was to be getting fucked up by Edom, King David at that time would have been like, let's gather Judah, let's gather together. Issachar, let's gather together. Benjamin, let's gather together, and let's do something about this shit right here. And they would go, and because knowing how much the Lord was with King David, they would fuck Edom up and put him under subjections, chains, lashings, punishments type stuff. Things you wouldn't say to your mama type stuff. This is verse 12. Thus says the Lord Yahweh, because that Edom hath built against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and hath greatly offended and revenged himself upon them. Therefore, thus says the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, I will also stretch out my hand upon Edom. All right, the Lord is going to grab you, Edomites, he's saying here, and to cut off man and beast from it. And I will make it desolate from Teman, that's Amalek today, rulers, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in Edom. Here's the kicker right here. Here's where this packs a punch right here in this verse. According to mine anger, we're gonna do. It says, Lord. It says we ain't pissed. We ain't angry at these devils. You know, the Lord says, according to mine anger, and it hurts. So when we feel anger, let's anger. I'm feeling myself right now. This ain't my anger. This is the anger from the Lord, because we have to give the Lord all credits. And according to my fear, and this is just the tidbits of the Lord's anger right here. How we feel in these bodies in this life now, with the anger we are in now, that's tidbits according to how the Lord's anger is going to be in the kingdom, in the glory. And according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, says the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. And I'm going to close out with Zechariah 2. No. Zephaniah 3 and 8. I'll start at 1. Woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. And so it's false Thanksgiving that's coming up that Esau ultimately is proud in, because this is where he would. This Thanksgiving was his celebration after killing a lot of Gadites from the wars, the Indian American wars you had, man. And go into the Indian American war history. Give you an idea of that. What they'll do to Gad's women, children, in his territory. You don't think that made Gad cry in his feelings? Manful tears. The Lord didn't hear. You can't just take what I'm saying and hear it and not feel it and imagine these things. This is Zephaniah 3 and 1. Woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. And this is the oppressing city. Check this one out down here in verse 8. Therefore wait ye upon me, says the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the press. So you can't be stupid either. Or you can't be stupid either and go out here and do some stupid shit. Wait ye upon me. It says, wait for the Lord. It says, until the day that I rise to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, and to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. Once again, the same thing is said in Ezekiel 25, but do according to mine anger. It says here, mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. And that's going to be the Lord. That's a sample, intro to Esau seeing the Lord's anger. The intro to that is America being destroyed with about 200 million missiles, and then it's going to be us shackling in. And the America being destroyed is just going to be the beginning. Or not even the beginning, I would say. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. Come. So with that, it says in verse 9, for then will I turn to the people of pure language, and Gad was known to speak ancient Paleo-Hebrew as well, proving he's Gad, and just looking at how cold he was with the sword, that even till this day, the military's named the Black Hawk helicopter after Gad, a certain Gadite tribe. They took the war paint that they would make, that the Navy SEALs wear, from Gad. Gad would started that whole war paint stuff. There's accounts of how they would sneak into Edomite camps and take all their guns without even waking a single Edomite up, until they woke up and realized all their guns and their horses was taken. That's how Gad would get down. That's where Esau came up with the Navy SEALs the splinter cells from Gad. And Gad was the first to master the horse, the bow, the gun, literally every single weapon you can think of. Gad was the only tribe to actually fully master, the first to master every single weapon. That I may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon him mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. Come on. So with that, that's the point. Shalom and the barber boss. So it's just proving that's Gad. That's how Gad gets down. Proving he's an Israelite. Come on. I brought that out in the first video. Gadites were men of war. Shalom. A barber boss.